I was born in Romania and in a region called Bukovina, which is a major city nearby is called Chernovitz. My grandparents had a farm near Chernovitz, and I was the first grandson, and I had 5 uncles. And I was a very happy child because I loved on the weekends to go to my grandfather in the farm. We ride horses, we go swimming in the river and the Prut, and it was a wonderful time. And in the meantime, in 1941, the war was going on in Europe, and we thought nothing's going to happen to us because we were farmers, we produced food, and we're not soldiers, we're not fighting anybody. So we thought we knew our neighbors well. They respected my grandfather, my family, and I thought nothing's going to happen. In October of 1941, somebody came, some kind of a deputy, I don't know who he was. He says, you have to go to the train station at 5 o'clock, and this was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we have to pack everything we had. I was 5 years old, and my sister was 2 years old. And they have to walk about 5-6 miles to the train station. At the train station, there was a lot of people, old and young and children, and a freight train came in, and they packed us in like sardines. It was a terrible ride because we were 60, 70 people in each car, and it was a terrible smell, and it was still warm in October, so they wouldn't. This was a train that was pulled by a steam locomotive, and every time the steam locomotive had to stop and get coal or logs to heat the water so you can continue the journey. In the meantime, several people in that train ride already were quite sick or half dead, and we begged the soldier. This, I want to emphasize, it was run by the Romanian soldier. Please open the door because there was just a tiny little window in the car, and that's not enough air for 60, 70 people. So he wouldn't do it unless you give him some kind of a bribe. And we gave them like a piece of jewelry or a watch or something, so he would open the door. At that time, some of the people that are already half dead, they took them out from the wagon and threw them in a lake or left them there at the train station. And I was sad for that, but on the other hand, I had a little more room to breathe. We were stopped in a river called Dniester River, which separates Romania from the Ukrainian part, and we had to cross the river. And there were no bridges or boats or anything. There were just a raft made with wood, was just pulled at the other end. So we were on that raft, and we were pulled into a city called Mogilev. And there were warehouses, and this was a ghetto now. From people the train unloaded its human cargo, and we were now in a ghetto, and there were no facilities, a warehouse is a warehouse, just a building. There was no water, no facilities, no medicine, no food, no heat, zero. And some peasants from around the surrounding area would come, and they would bring some food, but they wanted something for their food. So you would trade your watch, your jewelry, your nice blouse, linen. Those are the things they were interested. They were not interested in money because during the war, money is just a piece of paper. unless it's of special value. And so pretty soon you have nothing more to sell, and you get sick, you get hungry. Some people died, and the sickness doesn't stay in one place, because the farmers would come and trade. They would bring the sickness into town. And so the people in town in Mogilev said, we don't want these people here. They're bringing sicknesses. You, the Romanian army, you brought them here. You take care of them. So one day, an officer came into this warehouse with hundreds of people and says, we're eliminating this ghetto, which is wonderful, except that we had to walk from that city in Mogilev into smaller villages all over the area. The river, I told you, was Dniester. So the other side of Dniester is Transnistria, which is a region of Ukraine, just like Transjordan, Transamerica, it's the other side. And they dispersed us into villages. The village we were supposed to go to was about 9-10 miles, about 15 kilometers. And we were already quite weak, and the snow and the rain was coming in, and one soldier was in the back. And so we walked in the mud. The only thing that can really move were horses that pull a cart. And so we hired one guy to have some pregnant ladies on a cart and some suitcases that we still have. So we went to that village, and the village, they put us into a barn. And the barn was empty. Usually in a barn there are cows and horses and so on, because every farmer, instead of having his own place for his cow, he would park his cow or horse and then pay a small amount per month. Now these things are gone. I usually ask children, where are they gone? Well, they're gone because the soldiers took them away. And we were now the animals in the barn. So each family had a little straw, and we were there lying in that barn. And the farmers would come and trade with us whatever still have left. Again, pretty soon there was nothing to trade, and people get sick, and it terribly cold, and people died. I know one day I woke up and I said, "Hey, Dad, time to get up, time to get up." And he wouldn't move. He was dead. And about 3 weeks later, my sister died. So it was pretty bad. In other words, in Germany, they had a systematic killing of Jews. They would put them in a ghetto, and says, "You're miserable in the ghetto. Hop on a train. We'll take you to work," and so forth. And they took them to camps, and sure enough, Arbeit macht frei. It says, work makes you free. And we see the chimney. Of course, the chimneys were the crematorium. And people died in Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, Majdanek, Dachau, and so on, and these death camps, where people come by train from all over Europe, and they would be selected. You are healthy and useful, perhaps you can become our slaves, and you are too young or too old, you go over here, where you take them into a shower, and instead of shower of water, they would put cyclone gas, and then we take out the body from these slave workers, we take the body into the crematorium and burn them. And so it goes every day. 10,000 people were burned to death. Well, Romania wasn't that sophisticated. They wanted to be a partner of Germany and show their zeal. So they took us into middle of nowhere, and they figured out why waste bullets, or we don't have any crematoriums, or so they decided to do it in a starvation, cold, disease, and so forth. And that way, people died, and 250,000 Romanian Jews lost their lives in there. Some of them were shot, and so the village we were in, the people complained to the officer there because the kids were roaming around looking for food, trash cans. The villagers didn't complain, so Romania started an orphanage for all these lost kids. And somebody asked me, why did they do an orphanage? They want to kill us anyway. Why did they do orphanage? Well, 42, 43, the war started changing, and Romania knew that what they did was wrong, and they wanted to save face, and so they wanted to show some humanity, and so they got all these kids that were orphans or and put them in an orphanage. So I said to my mother, fine. I was what was it? I was about 8, 9 years old. I said, okay, if you survive, come and get me. If not, she says, you do the best you can. Like the war, okay, all wars have an end. So this war shifted because in April 44, a Russian officer came to where we were, to where my mother was, and says, you're free to go. But don't expect us to give you food, transportation, medicine, because the best thing we can do is you hop on a train and you can ride back home on a train, because now the cars are full of munition, food for our soldiers who are fighting in a war. So my mother came and took me from the orphanage, and we were going home. And we came finally to my grandfather's house, and somebody was already living there. So I said, they came out. I says, oh, I'm so sorry. She says, but I thought you have died in the camp. And so my mother says, you know what? Let me go in the attic. I need to find something there. So she went, I said, go ahead. She went in the attic and came back with a box full of letters and postcards. And we have relatives in the United States. So I said, okay, this was an uncle of mine, the brother of my father, and a sister who came to this country in 1920. So now that we don't have our property, they killed our family, and we wrote to, I still remember the address, 154 Allen Street, New York, New York. There was no zip code. So I said, please send food. And about 3-4 weeks later, we got a package, and we opened it up, and it was canned food. I've never seen vegetables in a can. I mean, we grew up on a farm. We pick our vegetables from the ground. And there was carrots and green peas and beans, and I didn't know what to do with it. I said, must be something inside. So I took a hammer and some nails and make holes, and finally managed to open a can and said, sure enough, here are the vegetables. And there was something else in that box. It was a brown box with an aluminum lid on top. And on the box it says C-O-C-O-A, which is pronounced cocoa. And so my mother thought it was coffee. We had no idea what cocoa was. So she boiled some water, mixed that thing with it, and it didn't taste good. So she added a little milk and sugar, and now we got a drink that I'm addicted to, must have one every day. Cocoa. In fact, I had one few minutes ago. There is no future in this in Romania for us, and we were robbed from family, robbed from property. So the only two places open is to go to the United States, where I have family, or another new country was born in 1948. It's called Israel, and we applied to go to both countries, and we waited 5 years before an answer came. And one day the postman delivered two envelopes. One says you can go to the United States, and one envelope says you can go to Israel. So now we have a dilemma. Where do we go? When I ask that question to students, I speak to them, the majority raise their hands and say United States, because that's where you have family, and there is cocoa there. So, and then once in a while I find a student that will say Israel. I said, why Israel? I don't know anybody there. I don't speak the language. And so usually I get a very good answer from some students. It's Israel was closer. In order to go to the United States, I had to go and take a boat from Italy or from France all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. We didn't have the money to do that. The trip to Israel was free. Who was paying for that trip? I don't know, but I have a feeling that the federation, charities from this country, Jewish charities or non-Jewish charities, somebody must paying our trip. I have no idea who paid for that trip, but we made it to Israel. And so my mother and I came to Israel, and I was already 15 years old in 1951, and so they took a bunch of kids like us, survivors and non-survivors, and they put us in a kibbutz where half a day we would work and another half a day we would learn Hebrew, Bible, history, as well as math, science, and chemistry, and all whatever education we could get. And in the meantime, my mother came and married my uncle in Orlando, Florida, where they lived. And after a kibbutz, every 18-year-old has to go in the military in Israel. And they thought that we will be a group that will establish a settlement. But most of us had other ideas for our future. They didn't want to be in a kibbutz. They wanted careers or other things they were looking for. I wanted to be in a kibbutz, but it didn't work out. So after the military, my mother, wrote to me, please come over, come over, come over. I said, okay, I'll come over. It's a free country. I can go back if I don't like it. I came to the U.S. in '56 and learned to speak English and went to University of Florida, went to Syracuse school, got married, have children, grandchildren, ta-ta. Okay, here's my story. It says, there is a terrorist attack in New York. Airplanes are flying right into buildings. And so, oh no, I went home and I couldn't believe it. And my daughter, Ronit, had two younger children, and she came to our house. She was afraid. She didn't understand what is happening here. The news wasn't good because it was a terrorist attack. And I realized that the hatred that existed from some certain people are hating so much that they're willing to sacrifice their own life to kill innocent civilians. And so I said, you know what, this is history repeating itself, except it's a lot worse. So, because no Nazi soldiers would kill himself to kill Jews. So I said, you know what, I have kept the secret about my background in Holocaust. I didn't want to tell my kids. My wife knew a little bit, but not much. And I seen what it has done to my mother. My mother was living with the Holocaust every day. She didn't want to go to a restaurant. She didn't want to go to a movie. She didn't want to, she lost her brothers, her sister, her daughter, her husband, and her parents. For her, life was finished. And I said, I'm not going to live my life like that. I still have a future here, and I'm going to continue and put the Holocaust aside. This nightmare will not be part of my life. Plus, when I was in Israel, you know, our teachers said, forget about the Holocaust. This is when you were weak, afraid, and here you're an Israeli. We fight back. We're not afraid of enemy who tried to destroy us. And you might as well forget about the Holocaust. You're an Israeli. And it worked fine for me. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Well, Hitler had an idea. He wanted to destroy not only the Jews, but the gypsies and all kinds of people, minorities that didn't fit his profile, Aryan profile. And says the only people that deserve to live are the ones that combine good physical shape, terrific mental shape, and so on. Everybody else has no room in this. This is a racist ideas, and I think those people who came see the United States as a model of democracy. People are free, and in the same theory that Hitler had, some of these fanatics, indoctrinated or otherwise, have the same idea that if you're a Christian, a Jew, or a non-believer, or whatever, and you don't fit our profile, our religion, you don't deserve to live. And I think this idea is a very dangerous idea. It's the same idea Hitler had. Anybody who doesn't fit my profile has no business being alive. And I feel the same way. Al-Qaeda and all the extremists have the same ideas. And that's why I keep talking to students that if you want to, you have to be tolerant. You have to live the Judeo-Christian life that even the handicapped have a right to life. Life is sacred in our religion. And so whoever takes one life, it says in the Talmud, as if destroyed the whole world. And these people that came over and hijacked the planes have no respect for life. And they wanted to kill and have bloodshed, the more the better. And I see it in that sense, the very similar ideologies, shedding blood for an idea that is horrendous.